Armagh Glasgow here, like I fault you wrote there. Tugabug Air Minishno, Big Mig, Listall, Galore, Ivrica. So since being elected to the Shannon, I've been contacted by numerous amount of people from like all walks of life, expressing their dissatisfaction with the level of public transport for people living around Tubbercurry in South Sligo. And leaving aside the matter of the full reinstatement of the Western Rail Corridor, which I know, Minister, as a West of Ireland man, that you're in favour of, bringing it right up to Sligo, the level of public transport, I suppose, offered to Sligo's second town, which is Tubbercurry, is woeful. You know, and I'm not exaggerating saying that. The main service on offer is Bus Eireann 64 Expressway, which connects Derry to Galway via Donegal, Sligo and Knock Airport. It's a fantastic service, it's usually very reliable, delivered by professional, really friendly drivers 7 times a day, and it's supplemented by the 964 bus, which is operated twice a day by Fido O'Donnell's. But there are also 2 other buses, you know, which come once a week, but I'm not even going to, I could go on with numbers there, but the 2022 census showed that Tubbercurry has a population of 2,307 people, and it's about 10% of the population of Sligo town, considerably larger than the population of Strandhill, Collooney and Ballysadare, which are the next largest towns. Tubbercurry's population has increased by a staggering 90% since 2002 and over 16% between the census of 2016 and 2022. But just as a way of comparison, there are 31 buses running on the S2 route between Strandhill and Ross's Point, which is via Sligo, which is a route approximately 20 kilometres. And I live actually on that route, so and it's fantastic to have that service. But there's only 34 kilometres, which is only 14 kilometres longer than the S2 route. Sligo to Tubbercurry should be an easy commute on public transport. A large section of Tubbercurry, people living in Tubbercurry work in Sligo town. So, the 64 bus is an intercity bus, so it's not a commuter bus. Like a standard bus coach, Aaron, seats between 50 and 55 passengers, and consequently there are very few seats available for commuters wishing to travel on a daily basis between Tubbercurry and Sligo. So I just want to point out, I suppose, that this is a public service obligation. That's what I would want. That's my whole point of this. And I want to bring up about price. So the full adult fare from Ross's Point to Strandhill, which I spoke about on the S2, is €2, and it's less with the Leap card. But the full adult fare from Tubbercurry to Sligo is €15. You know, so and Tubbercurry doesn't have any other available option besides this intercity bus. So I suppose, but the point to make is not a commuter bus. That Tubbercurry and its own surrounding hinterland has no commuter bus, and this needs to be addressed. But the 64 is the only publicly owned transport link between Tubbercurry and Sligo, and it must be retained. I'm bringing it up because it was announced by Bus Eireann that they were going to scrap the number 52 expressway, which serves communities in Mayo and Galway, which is our border counties. So, and I suppose that's what's raised this fear. And I've been contacted by loads of people of it because they rely so heavily on this only bus. So I suppose my question is that can we get confirmation from Bus Eireann that this service is not going to be withdrawn? So in the case of the 52 bus, the NTA made a determination that the public service obligation did exist and that the route should be retained, which is brilliant. And a key consideration of this determination was that there were only 52 to be withdrawn, that the number of available journeys in each direction would drop from 11 per day to just 5 per day. So were the 64 bus to be withdrawn, the consequences would be worse. At an aggregate of 9 services per day would just plummet to 2. And they were provided by the private service by Fido O'Donnell. So I suppose based on the government's transport policy, avoid, shift and improve, which we're trying to get people off roads, out of their cars and onto public transport, it's so important that this route is retained. And I just want to get confirmation from that.
Good, Sarah.
Let's hear look and Shannon freshen. I'm very familiar with Tubbercurry. I go through Tubbercurry very regular. I have an aunt up in Dunkeneely and Melly, so I visit her a lot. So I go through Tubbercurry, and I think Tubbercurry is famous for the filet Ciol as well. And my late first cousin was a great, and his 2 sons and daughters that participated in the filet Ciol there on many an occasion. So I know Tubbercurry very, very well. And I want to thank you, Senator Cosgrave, for your question. I welcome the opportunity to discuss this important topic with members of the House today. From the outset, I would like to clarify that the Minister for Transport has responsibility of policy and overall funding in relation to policy transport, and I'm taking this question on behalf of Minister Sean Kenny, who is a huge supporter of the Western Rail Corridor, as you know, and he's put a lot of work into that in the programme for government, and he's continued to work on it, and I know good progress has been made on it. But neither the Minister nor his officials are involved in the day-to-day operation of the public transport services, such as the scheduling of timetables or monitoring routes, which are the operational matter for Bus Eireann. Bus Eireann operates both public service obligation PSO services funded by the state subvention and expressway intercity services, which operate on a commercial basis and do not receive any state subvention. While expressway is a commercial operation and decisions in relation to its network are a matter for the board, the potential implications of any change, including for passenger, staff and the wider public transport system, gives rise to a number of policy considerations. That being said, the Minister is aware of the announcement made by Bus Eireann in March 2026 to withdraw some of its services which operates under its commercial service expressway. It is important to note, Senator, the particular one that you raised, it is important to note that the Route 64 is not one of the services which was withdrawn and continues to operate as normal. The decision to withdraw routes 4 and 52 and curtail Route 40 was made following a financial operational review carried out by Bus Eireann with regard to expressway over recent years, which sought to ensure long-term sustainability of the company. Regarding Bus Eireann's decision on services, there are implications for the public service obligation programme Visa, I think, I hope I have that right, the availability of funding for service replacement as part of the National Transport Authority's PSO determination process. The Department of Transport acknowledges that any withdrawal of expressway services will have an impact on some passengers via reduced services and in some cases the loss of direct connections. However, it will continue to liaise with the NTA in this regard. The NTA has confirmed that it would seek to mitigate I got tongue-tied, the impacts of the public through targeted PSO interventions where feasible, addressing the most critical connectivity gaps. It is important to note that any interventions in this case would have to take into account competition considerations and available funding and resources in the PSO programme. Similarly, with regard to other operator mentioned in the Senator's question, the National Transport Authority has statutory responsibility for securing the provision of public passenger transport services nationally and for decisions regarding the routes of these services in conjunction with the relevant transport operators. The service mentioned by the Senator is a non-subvented service that is run on a commercial and competitive basis by the operator themselves and does not receive funding from the Exchequer.
So just to confirm though, it's not being taken away and it's not going to be taken away.
That's what I have in my note here.
Okay, that's great to hear. So yeah, because I suppose there is worry, and like it's amazing the amount of people.
It's important to know that Route 64 is not one of the services which was withdrawn and continues to operate as normal.
Okay, so we can take it as a given that it's not going to happen in the future.
Well, I'm not the Minister for Transport, but I'm only reading it.
That's all right. No, Garmargot.
That's what I have in the note here, and if you're happy with that.
I'm happy with that, Jeff. No,
okay,
that's great.
Garmargot.
Garmargot.